tentoonstelling in de National Gallery in Londen. Lieve Blankaart op bezoek bij Sarah Bettens voor een gesprek van wijf tot wijf. En Lucas van den Einde en Els Dotterman schitteren in het Arsenaal in Mechelen. Dit is Republica. De grote hit tegenwoordig in Londen is Caravaggio. De laatste jaren van Caravaggio. Het zijn 16 schilderijen. De laatste jaren, niet dat Caravaggio zo oud is geworden, maar er is wel iets gebeurd in zijn leven. Op zijn 35e vermoordt hij iemand. Hij moet op de vlucht. En vervolgens gaat hij helemaal anders schilderen. Donkerder, bitterder, harder.
Caravaggio really fits in right there at the beginning of the 17th century, coming out of mannerism with all the artifice that had been applied to art. He cuts through it and he goes, let's get to the true reality of these subjects. And he stage for the Baroque in a certain sense, but his intense realism, his ability to capture verisimilitude with such, establishing such extraordinary sense of presence in his pictures, this is forgotten after a while. It's in 1951, there was the first great Caravaggio show, and it's no accident that it was taking place then, because post-war realism in the Italian cinema was setting the stage for his acceptance and appreciation.
Cinema saved Caravaggio.
In a way, yes. You have to remember The Bicycle Thief is from 1948. And so in 1951, this great show of Caravaggio's works appears, and Caravaggio, now historians had known him before this, but for the public, they embraced him immediately. And within a generation, he becomes a superstar in the world of art.
Was Caravaggio the first one to use real street people as a model?
Caravaggio was the first to use them in religious paintings and mythological paintings, and this is what makes him special. Ordinary people had been used in genre scenes before, but they hadn't been applied to the great themes from the Bible and classical mythology.
And this is the flagellation of Christ?
That's right. He paints it for a chapel in a big church in Naples. And when he gets to Naples, somehow the experience of the city invigorates him, and he returns to some of the solidity of his Roman manner. In this work, a brilliant study of Christ's suffering, he chooses the moment before the flagellation. And in creating this stumble, where he's yanked and shoved into place, and he stumbles into this pose of extraordinary beauty, and that conveys vulnerability as well.
It's also very erotic, isn't it?
Well, it's not erotic so much as he uses beauty, the very great beauty of the human figure, to indicate Christ's divinity. It's one of his very greatest paintings. It's a painting that is not in great condition, but in spite of its condition, it's one of his most vivid scenes. This is the transition, the moment when Christ commands Lazarus to rise from the dead, and you can see the one hand dangling down by the grave, lifeless, while the other hand begins to rise and seek the light.
Is that Caravaggio himself?
That's Caravaggio himself, looking back to the light. All of the figures aren't looking at Christ, they're looking back to the miraculous light that signals the revitalizing presence of the Father of life.
And the face of Christ himself is in the dark.
That's right. It's very audacious, completely audacious, and of course this is something that Caravaggio loved to astonish. But here he does it for a very good reason, and that is as a kind of portentous sign of what is to come, because with this miracle, the last and the greatest of Christ's miracles, Christ not only is raising Lazarus, but setting his own passion into motion, because this is the miracle that caused the Sanhedrin to take notice and go, oh, we have to deal with this guy, he's trouble.
Is he the first cinematographic painter?
Yes.
It looks like a still of a Scorsese movie.
Yes, indeed. And the thing about Caravaggio, though, is that he captures the essences of his stories in a single frame. He doesn't need the movies. He doesn't need 5 minutes. He gets it in a single frame.
Ja, we moeten ons haasten, want ze staan al aan te schuiven. We zijn hier voor openingstijd. Het is, normaal gezien kun je op de koppen lopen, zie je niets. Dus we moeten ons haasten, maar dit is eigenlijk het eindpunt van de tentoonstelling. This is the end of the exhibition.
We decided that this should be the end of the exhibition because of its biographical component. Here he depicts David with the head of Goliath, and while painters had shown themselves as David before, no one had depicted themselves as Goliath. And in doing so, he identifies with the embodiment of evil, and perhaps it reflects his desire for punishment. But the relationship, the compassion, the sorrow that you see on David's face and that reflects to this suggested not all that long after Caravaggio's death that the model for David was Caravaggio's lover. And so you get the heartless, cold lover killing the passionate older lover.
Eros and Thanatos.
Indeed. Indeed. And that's a possibility. It is also a possibility that this painting was made for Scipione Borghese, the Pope's nephew. Of course, Caravaggio wanted a papal pardon. And it suggests that if that were the case, that he was offering up his head in the form of paint rather than in reality.
Yeah. But he didn't make Rome.
No, he never made it to Rome. He died along the way of a fever.
He was 40 years old.
He hadn't even reached his 39th birthday.
Wij in Vlaanderen hebben een slagerszoon met een brilletje. In Nederland hebben ze een slagerszoon